Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 14th episode of Om-gnosis, the Occult South Asia podcast. I am Keith Edward Cantú, a lecturer on South Asian religious traditions at Harvard Divinity School and a research affiliate at the Center for the Study of World Religions. And I am really delighted to welcome Dr. Mariano Errichiello, who is a scholar of Zoroastrianism specializing in modern communities. His research combines textual analysis with ethnographic insight, with particular interest in mobility, migration, hermeneutics, and ritual performance. I know that you've been sort of awarded numerous fellowships at leading research institutes and are currently in the Department of Religions and School of History, Religions and Philosophies at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, and you are the Shapoorji Pallonji Lecturer in Zoroastrianism in the Department of Religions. So thanks so much for joining, Mariano. I hope that we can have a really great conversation. We've known each other since 2017, 2018. I think we just saw at the first Occult South Asia workshop in Vienna. So it's very fitting that we're here 8 years later talking about something similar. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Keith, and I'm very happy to be here with you. Congratulations on this initiative. And it's a long way from 2018. We have met in different events, and also we spent 1 year together in Germany. I've
Yes,
been
wonderful year.
really inspired also by your work, and looking forward to this conversation.
Looking forward as well. So, I mean, if you could start us off, perhaps people or viewers, might not be so familiar with your work. And so, if you could tell us a little bit about your background, especially what drew you into the study of Zoroastrianism, South Asia, and academia more widely, and your work at SOAS.
Sure. So, for me, the job in academia is my second career. I began
Mm,
studying international management in Italy, in Naples, which is where I'm from. Then I joined an association called IESEC that promotes leadership exchanges. And with that organization, I went to Central America, Costa Rica, Panama. I learned Spanish. I had a wonderful experience. And then I began my professional career in Mexico, where I lived
wow.
6 years, working in a consulting firm and traveling a lot, working with the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and at some point, I mean, since kid, I have always been very much interested in history, ancient history, religion, philosophies, psychology, esotericism, mysticism, and so on. So in my free time, I was reading a lot of these things. And at some point, I decided to explore whether there was a chance to make this my job.
Mm,
So I moved to London, still working at the same company, and I enrolled on a part-time master at SOAS, which is where I work now.
mm.
Interesting coincidence.
Okay, yeah,
And
came back circle, full circle,
yeah,
yeah.
life is a circle. And so why I specialized then in Zoroastrianism? I just enrolled on a master. It was religions of Asia and Africa, if I'm not wrong.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And then you need to choose which kind of courses you want to take. And there were the usual, Islam in East Africa, or Judaism in Middle East, and Christianity in China, and so on. And at some point, I saw Zoroastrianism. So, what
Mm.
is this? I heard about it
Okay.
by reading Nietzsche and the music of Strauss, but I had no knowledge at all about Zoroastrianism. So I decided to enroll on this course. It was a fantastic experience, and something that contributed to really drive my shift in the career was that in my class there were Zoroastrian practitioners, a priest
Okay.
and another guy. We became very good friends. So having this first-hand experience of living Zoroastrian it really made a difference. And then I did my PhD. I specialized on modern Zoroastrianism in Asia, in particular in India, with the Parsi community,
Mm.
esotericism, hermeneutics, and after my PhD, I went to Germany, and then in 23, I came back to SOAS, and I work as lecturer in Zoroastrianism and also at SOAS we have an institute called Shapoorji Pallonji Institute of Zoroastrian Studies, where I act as executive director. And we have a number of initiatives, outreach initiatives, workshops, lectures, scholarships, and so on. So
Mm.
I'm really in the place to do Zoroastrian things.
Yeah, I would say probably the epicenter of that study in that field. I mean, it's not a field that I'm too aware of, but I mean, it seems like a very vibrant place to research and be engaged.
Yeah, I was very lucky, I must say. And something else is that I was the inaugural recipient of the PhD scholarship from the institute. So I'm
Okay.
also a bit the product of this institute, and which was established thanks to a donation by Mr. Shapur Mistry, a Parsi philanthropist, in 2018.
Wow.
And it's very small field. Zoroastrian studies,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very small field. We have few places, and SOAS is one of them.
Mm. Yeah, I have a student in one of my courses who's very interested in Zoroastrianism, and so I've
Oh,
pointed him your direction as well. So I mean, it seems like that's the place to go to, further study in that topic. So that's
amazing. Looking
great.
forward to speaking with your student.
Okay, yeah, I will do that. He might be watching right now. Yeah. So, I'm wondering if you could tell, because a lot of people might not have a background in Zoroastrianism or also, the Parsis in India. And so I'm wondering if you could tell our viewers a little bit about the history of the Parsis in India and your work also looking at the funerary practices. And I know from our time at the Center for Advanced Studies in Erlangen and Kasi that you work on Nirangdin, these rituals in northwestern India. I'm wondering if you could just kind of frame the context for that a little bit. How does Zoroastrianism connect with the Parsis in India? I mean, I know they're the same community, but how does that history play out?
Yeah, sure. So the Parsi community are those Zoroastrians who migrated from Iran after the Arab conquest in the 7th century,
Mm,
created this community, established in Gujarat, then moved to Mumbai when there was a British colony. And today we have, I think, around probably 50,000, of which
mm,
40,000 must be in Mumbai, the rest still in Gujarat. And we have few also groups in Delhi, in other big cities of India, but the majority are in West India. We don't know exactly when they migrated. There is a myth of origin of the Parsi community that after the Arab conquest, they all together came in the first millennium and they brought
mm,
ritual implements and so on to India. Um, However, it's this is based on a Persian poem of the 16th century. Its historical accuracy is debated.
mm,
What we know, probably by archaeological findings, is that there was a wave of migrations that helped establishing this community in West India. Then another big important source to help understanding the history of Parsis in India is the Revayats, which is a collection of documents, Persian documents,
mm.
that are the evidence of exchanges between Zoroastrians in India and Iran. So from the
Oh,
15th
interesting.
to the 18th
Mm,
century, Indian Zoroastrians were sending emissaries back to Iran
mm,
to learn again things about the religion that they lost with the
mhm,
migrations. So that
mm,
is a very important body of textual body because it shows that religious authority at that time was still in Iran.
mm,
Though we see in the recent, in the later exchanges that there's a shift. So the Indians or Russians began not incorporating all the changes that the Iranian were suggesting. So that's where really the community engaged a lot and builds its identity in connection with the Indian country. And then obviously what we know a lot about the modern times with the British colony,
mm,
the Parsis from Gujarat, a lot of them moved to Mumbai. They really entered into business, trade. They led many of the commercial routes, the opium routes, for instance.
mm,
They moved across the colonial networks to East Africa, London, obviously.
mm,
Today, actually, Zoroastrian community is based in former British colonial cities and
Interesting.
Iran, obviously. They became a prominent community which contributed to politics, economics, and trade, and education, and many other aspects of the civil life in India. So this is a bit the what we may say in a short, very shortly about the Parsis. Today, if you go to Mumbai, you find many of them in South Mumbai, which is the
Okay.
colonial city.
Hmm.
That's where I go often to Fort, the south part of Mumbai, which is beautiful.
All right.
And yeah, your question about funerary practices, Nirangdin. So during COVID time, I found studying funerary practices was particularly interesting because
Hmm.
the way that Parsis dispose of the corpses of that
Hmm.
people is in Tower of Silence, which are these circular structures, and they expose corpses to excarnation by birds of prey, in the past vultures, but now they're extinct.
Okay.
They also use a bit of solar panels to accelerate the decomposition of the bodies. Because why they do that? They believe that other modes of disposal, like cemetery or burial, cremation, would contaminate sacred elements like earth or fire.
Hmm.
That's because once an individual is dead, the body becomes subject to the attacks of evil forces, becomes vulnerable. So they don't want to mix
Interesting.
it with sacred elements. That's why they do this open air exposition. During COVID, there was a big problem because for them, because cremation were forced. If people would have been,
Oh,
if they died by COVID, they were managed in a different way and they were forced to cremation. So my question was, wow, for a
yeah.
Zoroastrian who have considered themselves pious the whole life, putting
Yeah.
their corpse into the in contact with the fire must be a huge problem, theologically
Right.
speaking.
Right.
So I began studying what they were doing to tackle this. And even if part of the community already embraced cremation and they already were using other modes of disposal, the majority still were using
Hmm.
the power of silence. And so I saw how technology was being used, how other people they were adapting, how there was a financial problem with priests. They were not
Hmm.
performing anymore the
Mm-hmm.
rituals.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
I saw the
Yeah.
impact on the social life on several social domains of the Parsi community. It was an interesting experience, and now they are, back to. There are different modes of disposal. I always stretch on plurality of this community, though I would
Hmm.
say the Tower of Silence are back functioning, especially in Mumbai and in Gujarat, in Surat, for instance.
Hmm.
Sorry, in Udvad as well. There are Tower of Silence. And regarding the Nirangdin ceremony, which is
Mm-hmm.
the research I did when we were both in Germany. So the Nirangdin is a ceremony of 18 days
Hmm.
during which priests, Zoroastrian priests, spiritualize,
Hmm.
transform bull's urine into nirang,
Hmm.
a elixir that purify spiritually people, and it's
Hmm.
used in many other ritual performance, often sipped
Hmm.
to provide this inner spiritual purification.
Hmm.
I was always curious about this, and when I got a chance, when I was in Germany and I went to do field work in India and spend time with the priests, and in particular with some priests who were doing this ceremony in Mumbai, in the Wadiaji Atashberam.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I found very interesting. I would say that the biggest findings were, first of all, this is not just a ceremony between two priests in seclusion for 18 days in a fair temple trying to transform and spiritualize Buddha's urine, but it was really a community effort. You see how everybody
Hmm.
plays a role, people sponsoring financially, people preparing food for the priests, people bringing the ritual implements, the bull.
Hmm.
What if the bull is not the temple where this ceremony is being performed has not a resident bull? They need a
Hmm.
white bull called Varasiagi with special characteristics, you know. So I saw at least 50, 60 people involved in this ceremony. That
Wow.
was my biggest revelation. Is a community effort. Is
It's a huge event.
everybody,
Yeah.
yeah, working in legacy. And another thing is that being so hard, today there are 16 priests who regularly do that, meaning that there is a waiting list for the
Wow.
performance of this ceremony. So, and in a city which is Udvada, considered a pilgrimage site because apparently and probably there's the oldest fire, living fire in
Hmm.
this city.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it receives a lot of Zoroastrians coming from Canada, US, Hong Kong, etc. There's a waiting list of 2 years, more than 2 years, I think.
Two
So
years.
which is
Okay.
yeah, impressive.
That's very impressive. So clearly there's a huge demand for these ceremonies and for the purity and the blessing that they confer in
Yeah,
some
and
ways. Yeah.
often is patrons who sponsor this do it in honor of their in memory of people who passed away. So it's also a
Mm.
way to give back to the community and but be in contact with the spirits of the beloved ones. So yeah, one could say, as there are so few priests doing that, it's a secularization process. Rituals are becoming less relevant.
Mm.
Though when you see the supply demand dynamic, is not really the case.
Right, right. And so speaking, I mean, you use the word community a lot, and I'm curious sort of how is your work perceived by living communities of Parsis, and how is it relevant to their daily lives in a social context? I know that your method is very ethnography based, which is great. It seems like it's a wonderful method to understand and analyze these rituals more. But I'm curious, sort of, how are they receiving your participation there?
That's a great question, and
Mm,
that's it's an interesting one because something I learned on the field is really understand who you are speaking with and working
mm,
with. I give an example. I'm not a Zoroastrian.
mm.
I'm Italian, not particularly religious, but I grew up in a Catholic environment, let's say.
Okay.
And for them, they do not allow non-Zoroastrians to enter fire temples because there's an ethnic boundary in the community and there
Mm,
is a connotation of purity associated with ethnicity and spirituality. So the
mm,
fire can only be only Zoroastrians can be in presence of the fire. And it's very important. That means that the first question I had as doing my ethnography is that, okay, how could I observe or participate in a ritual if it's if I cannot enter the temple? But I could do that anyway when I discovered that it was a community effort and I could do I could participate in other actions of the ritual outside of the fair temple. And then something important, I think, is ethics. I think as long as you disclose your
mm,
positionality, who you are, what are you
mm,
doing there, they are wonderful. Even if I don't have access to the fair temple, they've spent a lot of time with me. They are very welcoming.
mm,
They are very good organizing social life.
mm. Okay. All
um,
right.
so could be very fun working with Parsis in India, and ethics are important because once you are clear about who you are, where you stand, and why you are there, they really help you. And I had never major issues.
Mm.
So my method had to change according to these, let's say, Zoroastrian ontologies,
All
very
right.
important aspects of the religion.
Yeah. Yeah. And sort of adapt and be flexible to that. Hmm.
Yeah, and they are also very curious. They read a lot scholarship, and so I think something that I admire of some of my colleagues. That there's a colleague in Oxford, Johan Vevaina. He stresses a lot importance also for philologists to
Hmm.
disclose their positionality,
Hmm.
conscious that the community reads our work
Right, right.
and conscious that translation have subjective aspects,
Mm.
there is a question of positionality even among non-anthropologists.
Mm. Really, huh? Other scholars besides anthropologists have to decide about their position? I didn't know that. Yeah, no, no, it's a good reminder. I mean, because it's not often talked about, it's sort of,
Yeah.
the elephant in the room a little bit. Well, I mean, on that note, I want to get to some of your other sort of research, in this field, and I know that you've also published, in addition to these ceremonies, on this topic of Zoroastrian esotericism. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about this and how, Zoroastrianism can be framed as esoteric in that way.
Yeah, sure. So,
Mm,
actually, my PhD was on a Ilm-e-Khshnoom, Science of Bliss, which is a
mm,
interpretation of Zoroastrianism, esoteric interpretation of Zoroastrianism. And something I discovered in my fieldwork and my historical research, archival research, um, is that I mean, in the past we read in scholarship often the community portrayed as in a dichotomous way, orthodox versus
mm,
reformers, those who advocate for conservatory, for customary forms of religion, against those who want to change it as a
mm,
consequence of the British colonialism, the Christian missions, and so on.
right.
When you really engage with primary sources, I think you can see that it's a bit more complex than this
Okay. All right.
dichotomous view of the society.
Yeah.
And I saw that there are many different claims of religious authenticity, even in such a tiny community. And
Mm,
esotericism, actually, in my research, I saw it as a form of hermeneutics, a
mm,
hermeneutics expression, a form of interpreting religion and ritual, a form of engaging with the question of divinity, the primary sources, ancient texts, the ritual performance, and that's why in my work I speak a lot about hermeneutical polyphony.
mm,
And it's important to recognize plurality, going beyond this dichotomous view of society, and give the right place to esotericism as one of the methods used in this hermeneutical polyphony. So
mm,
I think on that also we had interesting conversations in the past because you have experienced something similar in your research. I mean,
mm.
the association of hermeneutics with esotericism, and it would be it's surprising to see how Parsis in 19th, 20th century use themselves in their texts
Mm.
the English word esotericism.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
That's very interesting. They choose
Yeah.
to use that word. So that's a bit my work on esotericism, and something which I also developed after this and after the experience in Germany is also the idea of exploring the performativity of these choices, hermeneutical choices in the society, in the behaviors of people. And I saw that there's a high degree of performativity of these hermeneutical choices. That's why then
Mm.
I moved towards a more ontological framework that shows that these kind of ideas, beliefs, and interpretive choices are not just intellectual. They go beyond the realm of research and exploration, but
Mm.
they have a performativity in daily behaviors, attitudes with the community, society, politics, communal politics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I give you an example. There was a case of building of a metro station under in Mumbai under a fair temple. So there
Okay.
was a court case. The Parsis did not want that, and they used in court some texts evoking the esoteric aspects of the fire temple and the
Oh,
fire,
wow.
the vibration of the fire
Like its
would have
effect
been,
in the land, sort of, and okay.
yes, so the tunnel would have affected the vibration of the fire. And so that was the way they were trying to show that this metro building construction should have been moved.
Okay.
So, this is for me an evidence that is not just a subjective area of inner exploration, but goes really into the society
Mm-hmm.
if you use it in a legal case. So that's why I began exploring it more as an ontological, in ontological formation. And the special issue that I edited together with Dan Sheffield and Johan Bevaina, collected a few interesting articles which go beyond the Parsis. There are also cases of ancient Zoroastrianism or modern Zoroastrianism in Iran with arts, music. And I think what is common to all of these cases is the role of mediation, the mediative role that esotericism covered between modern antiquity, between different domains, between arts and religion, is always in the middle of something. It's
Okay.
a liminal space where interesting
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah. And I like how this sort of idea of hermeneutic polyphony can sort of, engage these various spaces and mediate, between different domains. Yeah. That seems really interesting. And also the idea polyphony has a sort of like a music or sound-based aspect as well. So sort of, speaking of vibrations and so on, it seems to, link in some way there. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting because I remember recently we had a workshop and a colleague, Michael Stausberg, made a comment. He said, I agree on this, but I would not call it polyphony because they fight with each other. So probably cacophony would be a better term.
Cacophony, yes, yes. Well, speaking of cacophony, we have another word on the table here. I mean, we met, as I mentioned, at the Occult South Asia workshop in
Yeah.
Vienna, and I've been introducing Om-gnosis as the first Occult South Asia podcast, very aware of the issues around this word occult, and I'd like to offer more critical analysis of this category. And I'm wondering how your research can connect with this and what you think are some of the problems and or positive sides with this word occult as an adjective.
No, that's
Yeah.
really great question. And first of all, personally, I feel, I mean, as it was an opportunity for me to meet you and many other friends in the field for the
Mm.
first time, I have a special attachment to that workshop in Vienna. It was a great experience.
It was. It
Uh,
was.
yeah, I remember smoking from your pipe.
Tobacco pipe, let's clarify
Tobacco
here.
pipe,
Yeah.
yeah, very occult
Although there were
experience.
probably other pipes, at that conference.
Yeah,
Who knows? Yeah.
yeah. But I think so. The adjective occult is, I see it like productive tension, a field of, is quite generative because on one hand, obviously, especially in the South Asian context, I think we enter into like a discursive field which is very much shaped by colonial scholarship, Orientalism,
Mm.
taxonomies, classification, theosophical Orientalism, and so on. And we need to be aware of these things. So
Yeah.
often this term could risk to other or exoticize,
Mm.
romanticize forms of
Mm.
knowledge, as we have seen in, it has happened a lot.
Certainly.
And so risks on one end of projecting some kind of Western connotation of secret, hidden onto South Asian experiences and
Mm.
practices. But on the other hand, there's also a positive side in using this term, if it's done properly and carefully. For instance, it draws attentions on practices of knowledge transmission, which are willingly restricted, like initiation, ritual expertise, which we know they exist also in India, in South
Mm.
Asia.
Mm.
So I would say that if it would be important to use it yet, because it shows that occult is not peripheral as often has been
Mm.
labeled, or esotericism in general is not peripheral or deviant or imported necessarily. But as a constructivist, I'm okay with every concept and category as long
Mhm.
as it's properly conceptualized and one explains why he uses it. So I think the challenge is to use the term occult in a way that opens analysis about the use of
Mm.
this concept and further reflections on how to use it in scholarship and also in dialogue with there's magic, esotericism, and many other
Mm.
concepts.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I certainly agree and I resonate with that. And I think that it's important also from my perspective. I had thought about, doing a podcast or having some sort of discussion related to Tantra or, even sort of maybe Tantric yoga or sort of relating to that. And then I realized that if you do that, though, then you also have to sort of then uh, exclude other religious groups that might not connect to that word tantra,
Mm,
but would connect to, a concept like esotericism or occultism. Like, let's say Islamic Sufism, for example. There is a tantric aspect in some forms of Islam, but it's not necessarily as prominent as the esoteric category. And
yeah.
my idea would be that it's something similar in Zoroastrianism. They might not connect necessarily to this category of Tantra, which is sort of an emic, describer of something similar in South Asia. But if you sort of, widen the tent a little bit, then you have some more voices kind of come into the picture, with that. And
Yeah, exactly. For instance, something I see is that some of our colleagues in the US prefer
mm,
the term occult, and
mm,
in Europe you can see more esoteric.
mm.
It's just an observation, but yeah, they are floating terms.
Hermeneutic, polyphony, or cacophony. All right, we'll be okay with that for now. I guess so. Then I want to get, in closing here. This has been very rich so far, and I think it gives a lot of, information for people to follow up on. I'm wondering what are some of your current projects and initiatives in the pipeline? I know that you're very active at SOAS, and I'm wondering where you kind of see your research going from here.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to showcase what we do here. So, in terms of research, I think next step is to start looking at Zoroastrian communities around the world as a global network.
Hmm.
That's what I would like to do. Usually, they have been studied in their national boundaries, and I would like to go beyond these boundaries,
Hmm.
especially working on those who I like to call ontological brokers. So
Hmm.
this is a globally 100,000 people community. So it's a small one, and there are many. They know each other. They are connected. They do conferences where
Hmm.
everybody participate. They do what I call affective mobilities. They go back to Mumbai to find a partner.
Wow. Okay.
So I would like to really bring to light Zoroastrians as a global interconnected community instead of small
Hmm.
separated community. So this is a bit my uh, big project. I hope next big project. And regarding what we are doing now, we are doing many things. Something interesting, and I must also say is inspired by you, by our time together in Germany,
Okay.
is working with art.
Hmm.
Um, I found it so. If I'm may be very honest, I think in academia we are very lucky. We do a wonderful job, and we research
Hmm.
something we are passionate about. However, when we organize lectures to share our findings. Um, I see that we have the same small number of people who have an interest and so on. But so my question was, how can we go beyond
Right. Right.
uh, these boundaries, these academic boundaries, and engage with more people without losing the research findings, but
True.
really going beyond in the outreach. So
Hmm.
last year we
Hmm.
launched here at SOAS an Artist in Residence Fellowship, and every
Oh,
year
wow.
we invite an artist who responds to research question through artwork production. So, example, last year we had a architect artist. The research question was about how materiality, religious objects inform your identity formation. And
Wow.
this
Okay.
architect worked on some objects which are very common in Zoroastrian households, which helped him to understand the concept of scale when he was very young, because there was a little
Hmm.
dove on a cone, and then he realized that, oh, this must be huge. And
Okay.
the exhibition that we have now on celebrates this realization, and he finally did for the first time in his life these objects at human scale.
Wow.
So
Okay.
celebrating
Yeah.
this realization when he was a young Zoroastrian, and also acknowledging that he became an architect because he was playing with these geometrical figures, which are part of a ritual trail in every Zoroastrian household. So he's an
Yeah.
embodied example of how religious objects, materiality, can really shape identity formation.
Certainly.
Next year we have a musician. Then the idea is to also explore the five senses. At some point we will have food. Hopefully, I like to eat.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I'm curious about that. Yeah.
So, and it was inspired by you. I know that you work a lot on art, and I have been very lucky to attend some of your performances. Our colleague Francesco Piraino, who also work on
Certainly.
arts, and I
Yeah.
think he had the fellowship on the Cini Foundation at some
At the Chini,
point.
yes.
Yeah. So, inspired by the great work you have done, guys, I think, okay, let's explore this. And so we launched the exhibition in October. It was amazing. We had 200 people from non-Zoroastrian contexts, beyond academic context,
Wow, that's a big turnout.
and
Yeah.
I love working with artists and the art world. I'm learning a lot personally, so it's been a great experience.
Okay. Next, we'll see you as curator extraordinaire, somewhere in there at the British
I'm
Museum.
learning. I'm learning, and you know what we do here? We do a lot of co-production and critical
Okay.
pedagogy. So we created a curatorial team with our students, with museum professional. There was a curator from the British Museum, former curators, academics. So it was a big
Hmm.
team, and it was a wonderful experience.
Wow. Well, it seems like you're just, continuing to be really active and making a huge sort of contribution to the Zoroastrian community and giving back to, the communities that have helped you research and study, which seems really great. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's the idea, to give back, and yeah, I feel lucky, and that's also a way to give back and have fun and do something, meaningful, having fun.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time and for, taking the opportunity to share with us about Zoroastrianism and the Parsi community, esotericism, and so on, and your work. And I look forward to, joining you at some point in the future again, to have a nice drink and maybe try some Parsi food, maybe, or something like that. And, to reconnect. So, yeah, I really appreciate
Amazing.
you joining us here.
I would love it, and yeah, I hope to see you soon and spend some quality time together. And thank you so much for the invitation, for the amazing work you do, and I look forward to listening to the next episodes.
Okay, all the best.
Bye.
Siva Maya